You're listening to the Paul Young Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to Paul Young Podcast, and we continue our saga with emails from Joani. This is part 9. We're going to end up with, I think, 10, maybe 11. We'll see. But I want to get right into it. This is from Joani. Hi Paul, I've been dreaming lots lately, and I don't know what to make of it. It started about a month ago. I've never put any stock in my dreams, but these ones are weird and so vivid. It started with me dreaming about a phrase over and over again, just these words. Holy Spirit is quiet food. Holy Spirit is quiet food. I dreamt it on repeat all night and woke up around 4 a.m. and it felt really silly and so childish in the phrasing and concept. I asked Jesus about it and he gave me this picture of my grapevine outside. How still the stalk is, and how inanimate it seems, just a piece of wood not moving. But the inside is full of juices and membranes and movement going on from the roots to the leaves and fruit and back in a constant state of growing. But that was all I got, and I kind of put it away as something I made up. Then I dreamt about a creek overflowing its banks, one on my parents' ranch, and the water had covered the forest floor in a still but beautiful and shallow amount of water that I was wading through on my way up a mountain. It should have been scary, but it was peaceful, and this song was playing in my head called Still Waters, based off of Psalm 23. And the phrase was there again, about Holy Spirit is quiet food. And somehow it was connected to being led by still waters, as if the waters fed my soul or something. Safety. And then I dreamed again, this time about picking wild acorns and hazelnuts and gifting them to my teacher rather than a research paper I was supposed to do and wanted to come across as smart in. I had them all gathered in my shirt and put them on my teacher's desk as fresh wild food, and again that phrase, the Holy Spirit is quiet food. I read the Lord's Prayer, and the part about give me this day my daily bread felt like it was connected to Holy Spirit. This weirded me out. And I've never had so many consecutive dreams about one topic. Anyway, now some time has passed and I dreamt that I was praying in gobbledygook ways in a dream a couple nights ago. It was very vivid. It felt important, but I didn't know what I was praying for. Last night, I dreamt about homeless kids sleeping outside my parents' trailer. There were so many, and they had no blankets, and I wanted to bring them all in, but there were men stopping me. It was so vivid, and I can still see their faces right now as I type, and it's breaking my heart. But I don't know what Jesus wants from me. I don't know how to help, or what, if anything, it means. I've never believed in dreams. I've only ever seen them as a way to process the day. I guess there's not really a question in here. I'm just confused and a bit upset about my dream last night, wondering, why am I dreaming these weird dreams that potentially have meaning, but I don't know. And I'm worried that I'm not doing enough for Jesus to help those kids. Before I respond directly, I wrote this back. Hi Joani, I think these dreams are amazing. As I read your email, the one theme that jumped out to me was, Joani, relax. Maybe stop trying to do something and let the vine produce the fruit, the quiet food. I think it's quite remarkable. You prepare a table in the presence of enemies, not me. So relax. That's all I got. Love and hugs. Joani's response. I laughed out loud when I read your reply. Why do I always forget to relax and don't even realize I'm striving? Ha! This trust thing is a never-ending process. Thanks for the reminder, Paul. It was like a hug. I'll pray that Jesus gives you one back. I love dreams. I mean, especially vivid ones. I got a lot of dreams, but most of them are just meaningless. Ways to, like Joani says, process the day. And if I'm traveling, a lot of them are trying to find my plane or gate at the airport, and I get lost in the terminal and I always end up late, which has been an experience in real life, but not very often. It seems like I'm stuck trying to get someplace. And I'm sure there's meaning in that too, but I've had a handful of really vivid dreams, and those vivid dreams mean something. And so it's like, all right, you're on a dreaming adventure. How great is that? I can think about them, and maybe I'll have something to share with Joani at some point when we talk about those dreams again, because I want to ask her, so in this time, have you learned anything about what they mean? Many of my dreams that were vivid, I had very little clue or none at all about what they meant when I dreamed them. Now I can look back at them and I still remember every detail. They're as vivid today in my mind as they were then, and they are significant dreams in my life. In fact, 2 of them in my 3rd year of college, at the end of my 3rd year of college, have framed my entire life, and I didn't know what they meant at the time. Maybe sometime I'll tell you about those. Got a next email. This was now in October. It starts, "Hi, Paul. I took a course with St. Stephen's University in New Brunswick, Canada. Bradley was her teacher, Bradley Jerzak. It's called Gospel Christology, and it's all about the kenotic nature of God." This is a kind of a big word. It's a theology word. It means self-emptying, the self-emptying of God, the giving away of God's self. Now, here's one thing you need to remember about kenosis. There is no limit to the supply of what is being given. It is a river that never runs dry. And a lot of times when we think of self-giving, we think of giving away ourselves until there's nothing left. And that is not what kenosis is, although I don't think people grasp that very often or very well. So this self-emptying is a way of being, and it's trusting that there will always be more water, more to give, and that it isn't a well that runs dry. So that's my note about kenosis. She goes on, "I thought it would be a good chance to grow. It has thrown me into a tailspin of depression, and I'm convinced as a simple person I should just stay away from theology and philosophy." Isn't that funny how when we hit a speed bump or a bump in the road or whatever, and we get brought to an abrupt halt, that one of the things that we want to do is just like, let's just give up the whole thing. Go find a little corner and hide. Very common and not unusual at all. I've known that place many times where I get confronted with something or get stopped in my tracks that suddenly I just want to bail. I just want to quit everything. I just want to go find a little hole and crawl into it. So I get that. I even dreamt during writing a paper that I lost my firstborn baby in the sanctuary of my church, where all these crosses hung on the walls. And I knew right away she'd been taken by a man, and I wouldn't find her, though I couldn't stop searching in the pews and cupboards and Sunday school rooms. It was one of the most vivid pictures I've ever had, and I couldn't shake it for the next several days. I woke with a sense of loss so acute, I stayed home from work that day and I hid. I talked with Bradley briefly about it, and he suggested it was maybe a representation of my faith being lost, that I should ask Jesus to help me find it. I tried meeting Jesus in the dream afterwards, but all I could do was sit on his lap in a pew and sob. I thought maybe Jesus was showing me how he feels about those who are lost, so I apologized to him for taking the cross lightly, but nothing came clear to me. Now I wake in the mornings with this dread and this sense of hopelessness that seems totally illogical and unproportionate to just a dream and a course. I don't know why I just can't agree with and accept what people I value and respect find so very essential. You and Bradley are 2 of the first teachers, as well as Richard Rohr, that I've started listening to since I left the church 15 years ago. P.S. I hope it's okay that I express these thoughts to you. I know how much is on your plate. Feel free to not respond. I'm also very aware that I'm a bored housewife in a sheltered bubble of existence while you and Bradley are both immersed in the world of suffering, having so many people reach out to you for comfort and telling you their pain as well as having experienced it yourself. So I hope deeply that my words do not offend you. And if they do, I'm very, very sorry. She is so sweet, right? She goes on. There is just this feeling I have when I try and reach for clarity about the cross and kenosis, since I have to do a research paper on it. I don't really know how to describe it, but I feel deeply that somehow the translation between the experience of suffering with Christ and the communication of it from teacher to student or pastor to congregation gets all tangled up in sacrifice, not being enough, or a try harder type of message. It becomes a mirror of failure and the immensity of human darkness. It's not that I don't believe in self-emptying. I know Jesus does this over and over again. But it's that I think it must come like the outflow of a spring where he is being filled up over and over again with all the abundance of his dad and the kenosis is bubbling over with that water. I just have this feeling like one shouldn't ever study kenosis without the opposite to it as well. Am I making any sense? Or is it just this frantic ramblings of someone who doesn't want to sacrifice? I ask myself this over and over. Is my lens just so distorted by my own reluctance that I'm missing everything important and I'm being a rebellious child having a tantrum? When I read Simone Weil, and she says how she envies the good thief on the cross for being next to Jesus and suffering just the same as him, how she longs to experience the cross, my whole spirit yearns with a yes. I want to feel that way. I can almost get it. But it would mean to be just next to him, to be let into his worst, hardest moments, because it's not him, not because it's the cross, because she, Simone Weil, so loves him, and her spirit has always been so in love with the massive humanity that suffers all around her. She has so much compassion, but it was not taught to her. It was given to her by God, no? And then I read how she says that she ponders whether to join the church, but can't, because God hasn't told her so. Anyhow, one cannot make oneself love. And I think there's no truer statement. I feel like the teachers who say, take up your cross, are trying in reality to make us students love by sheer force of all the material they can find and lecture and persuade with. Only that material is so full of all the ways we don't love. It's so focused on the shadows of us, on the immense gulf between us and Jesus, and trying to use the cross to illuminate that gulf in order to show how amazing he is. It just makes me want to get out of my discipline of self-flagellation, the one I used for years and years as a child to make myself be good enough for him, because I loved him, always, always, because I wanted to be his and to make him feel my love. But I was such a sinner, so full of sin. I hated myself for not being able to be what he desired me to be. I don't know what exactly I'm trying to say, except I want to accept suffering with Jesus for Jesus. I hope I would throw myself into the fire if he needed me, but I don't like being spanked with the cross either. As I read Brian Zahn's book, The Wood Between the Worlds, that's all I felt. How awful am I for not being able to love his point of view? But I don't know if focusing on suffering and self-emptying is really the point. I can't quite convince myself of that like Simone Weil did. Suffering is inevitable. It comes and goes. My grandma in her older years worried and worried that she hadn't suffered enough. So her kids refused to give her pain meds in her last days to help her. I feel like Jesus wants more. It feels like he thinks life is a gift and joy is something important to him. That joy is why he endured the cross. It feels like he wants to get off the cross and come teach me how to live full-heartedly. Kenosis can't be a full picture, can it? And suffering isn't the end and be-all. But if it is, then I think I don't know him at all. Apologies and hugs and crossed fingers that I'm not offending. I didn't know who I could talk with about all this. And you are so much love and light from him. Now that's a powerful email. I don't know how to put it in any other words than that is a gut-wrenching, powerful confession. It's holy ground. I wrote this back to Joani. Hi, dear Joani. What a fragile and beautiful email. And by the way, I don't think you can ever offend me. You simply are not that powerful. So stop apologizing, or you're allowed to apologize one time, and you did, quite brilliantly. So now on to other things of more substance. I have a few comments, perhaps a grain of salt worth, but they are mine all the same. As I, in reference to your email, have thought about kenosis, maybe we don't communicate very well the thought about God emptying himself. God was never empty. I am not sure that this will help, but I wrote something that relates, at least in my gut, if not in my mind, and here it is. And I wrote this because I was struggling with everybody being so opposed to the ego. And yet Jesus talked a lot about I am, which is ego, I am, ego, I, me. I am. I am the bread of life. And so it's not the ego that is fundamentally the enemy. It is the enthronement of the ego because we rely on it to give us identity and worth and value and significance and all that. And it gets us into all kinds of trouble. So here's the piece I wrote. Dear ego, as I can't live without the interwoven presence of love in me, I cannot live without you. I hear the whispers about you, that you are the dark force, the thief, the killer, the liar, the marauder, but I can't live without you. I've tried, but I've always ended up nowhere and nobody. I've tried to live denying you, but that's turned out to be impossible. If I could kill you, I too would die, lapsing into nothing. I can see how that which is outside has tried to deny your presence in me, to attempt to destroy your necessary existence, to cast you out, to join the accusations and attempt to cover you, or hide you, or excise you with the clothing of performance, or brokenness, or lipstick of self-promotion and self-protection, or facades and imaginations, or bluster, or weight training, or success, or alcohol, or words, or the imagination of independence and separation. as if you needed any of that to be the I am tucked deep inside the safety and the arms of the I am. I am hidden in love. I am protected and crucified, rise and ascend in I am. I am freed to live in I am. I am, you are not the enemy. The enemy is shame and fear and accusation and independence and death and having taken up a life of its own, as if it were true and real and right, and deceived and tempted and harassed and wounded and harmed. It is not real. It is not an I am. Neither is it an I am. It is the ever-present I am who whispers and loves and encourages and sings and holds and listens and works and waits. As the fire does their work in you, I am, you will not be destroyed or harmed or abandoned or discarded or absorbed or eradicated or harmed or maligned. I am, you will be loved. Return, precious I am, and see, I am that I am true. I am beautiful, and I am love. I am way, I am truth, I am life, I am bread, I am light, I am good, I am consuming fire. My promise is to you that you, I am, will be freed as I am free. Dear ego, I can't live without the interwoven presence of love in me, and I cannot live without you. I go on and say this. Joani, vivid dreams are important dreams. I've had a few of those, and for some of them it's taken years to see and understand. They become more precious with time. I think that Bradley may be on the right track, but perhaps instead of being about your faith being lost, it is more about your faith being stolen. Maybe instead of depression being the right response, it ought to be fury. The man took it. The thief, the priest, the pastor. And of course you would never find it in a pew or Sunday school room, because even though you were told it was there, it never was. And who told you? The man. Meeting with Jesus was not only good, but it was the answer. At least that is how I process your dream, which is potentially unhelpful and confusing, but maybe not too. You will know what resonates. Just so you know, I find a lot of the suffering conversations are too complicated and filled with expectations, which, as you know, is a word near the top of my list of words most despised. We all live in bodies, and in a world and relationships that will bring plenty of suffering. So why imagine more than we encounter? Why romanticize suffering as if it were a target of holiness? It isn't. And it isn't the suffering that is important. It is the redemption of suffering that matters. We are not to imagine suffering that does not exist in order to congratulate ourselves for suffering in some comparative or competitive way so that we can get a spiritual high five from God, or at least from others who now feel judged by our performance. If suffering is the target, why do we fight it? Why does our body fight it? Why does God want to redeem it? Should we be opposed to medicine and doctors because they're fighting suffering? That is not the point, is it? The point is the redemption of suffering as it happens, not as how it is imagined. Frankly, I don't have grace today for some experience of physical martyrdom. Why? Because it doesn't exist. Not today. It's not inside of what I face today. So I don't have any grace for it. None. Like, not at all. Why waste my time? My dying today is with things much more powerful, like my self-centeredness, my fleshly need to be important, my denial of my own origin as made in the image of God. Those things are actually what is in front of me, not some mythological self-flagellation that doesn't exist. You cannot redeem something that does not exist. God is working toward the redemption of all things, but it sounds like we want to justify eternal conscious torment as something good, the elevation of suffering. There was no suffering God prior to us dragging sin into the cosmos, and one day there will be no suffering again. So there, my rant for the day. Thank you for asking, because your question was very helpful for me personally, and the timing was perfect. There's plenty of suffering in my life. Trinity and I are redeeming it one moment at a time, one response at a time, because I am in union with Jesus as we suffer together in me. I am participating in filling up the sufferings of Christ, and He's teaching me moment by moment and by moment how to redeem suffering as it happens in my life. And we experience joy in our suffering, not for our suffering. My epilepsy is not a gift, but as we redeem it, life springs up everywhere within it. Epilepsy sucks, but so does shame and self-centeredness. And yet, as the burning bush is destroying all that is not of love's kind, that redemption is exposing all that is of love's kind. Enough for now. Big hugs from one grateful person to another.